Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and this is the Eddie Network podcast. Welcome today to my friend Dan Visosky, who lives in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I appreciate him very much because when it came time for me to sell my home and move back to North Carolina, he was the guy that made it happen. So thank you, Dan, for being here. And great to see you. And thank you for all that you've done for me. And let's just talk about whatever is of interest to us. And
Okay.
tell us a little bit about what you do and what I mean, I know you're a real estate guy, so tell us a little bit about what that's like in Jackson.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a crazy business here, as you can probably expect. Teton County slash Jackson Hole is again ranked as the wealthiest per capita county in the entire country again this past year. So there's an extreme amount of wealth here, which has kind of changed this cowboy town into a tax haven for the uber wealthy coming from California and all these other states who are basically buying second, third, fourth homes here as a tax shelter. So it's a very interesting time right now where the locals are getting priced out. The people who work can't afford to live here, and most of them are starting to commute from these outside communities, either in Victor and Driggs, Idaho, down in Star Valley, Wyoming, and even as far as Idaho Falls, Idaho, which is a 2 hour commute for a lot of these people who are coming here for work. And they can actually they justify it by coming here and saying that they're getting paid more money.
Wow.
Uh, and it's worth a 2 hour drive for them to drive to Jackson to work. And yeah, so it's very interesting times here in Jackson. But it's a great place to raise a family. I've lived here since 1998, moved here from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, small ski resort back there called Seven Springs.
Hmm.
And I grew up in the ski industry. My parents both worked at the ski resort, so I grew up in the hospitality industry and always knew that I wanted to move out west and live in a ski town and be close to the mountains. Yeah. So
That's
it's been a fun
fantastic.
ride.
I didn't know all that background. Uh,
Yeah,
that's really cool. How's the skiing this year?
that's terrible. We don't have any snow right now.
Oh, really? Oh my.
Yeah, it's really kind of bleak. We've had one storm roll through here right around Thanksgiving, which is 3 weeks ago, and we haven't had any snow since.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not great.
We had a little bit
It
of
always
snow.
comes though.
We
Every
had,
year it comes.
we had a little bit last week, and I was thinking, oh, wonder what's going on in Jackson, Uh,
Yeah.
well, that's crazy. And you got Christmas coming up in a couple of weeks, and
Yeah. I feel bad for a lot of the hotels and the ski instructors who rely on that Christmas, New Year's crowd.
yeah.
And it's interesting now, so many people are booking their ski trips here kind of last minute because it's easy to do, booking a plane, booking a hotel, and everybody's following the weather nowadays. So unless you own a place here, it's gonna be it could be an interesting Christmas here. It could be pretty quiet.
And so let me pose two different pictures of Jackson. So you have the ski resort culture and economy, and then you have this
Hmm.
tax shelter economy. Do they
Hmm.
do they intersect at all, or how does that work?
I don't think they really intersect at all. I think a lot of these people who are coming here who are owning the homes that are, let's say, over $5 million. You don't really see those people, or it's hard to interact with those people because they come here, they come visit they're coming here usually to get away from work because they've done something right in their life to be able to afford a $5 million plus or whatever that house costs. And a lot of times they're coming here to recharge, get away from people, and it's so the interaction with the locals and those people, it can be very difficult to meet those people or you don't even see them, or they just kind of blend in with the tourists. You
Yeah.
can see people drive. Yeah, I used to be able to go to the grocery store when I moved here in '98, and a couple years after that, I would know everybody at the grocery store. And you go to the grocery store now, and I don't know a lot of people now. But the town's also grown as far as the economy or the population. There's about 10,000 people that live here full time now. So it's a small town, but our busiest time of the year is in the summertime because everybody's coming through Yellowstone. And
Yeah.
they say close to 3 million people come through Jackson Hole in the summertime during those peak times from kind of Memorial Day to Labor Day.
And so the stores that cater to tourists really do well in the summer.
They kill it. They do really, really well here, especially the hotels and the restaurants and the grocery stores.
Yeah.
And a lot of the outfitters who take people up to Yellowstone for wildlife viewings, the
Yeah.
backcountry guides who take people up in the Tetons to go hiking, climb mountains, the fishing guides. It's extremely busy here. A lot of people who don't know Jackson Hole think that it's a ski town, but it's more of a summer destination for everybody coming through Grand Teton National Park in Yellowstone because it's the closest town that people can come stay at because it's pretty limited as far as where you can stay inside Yellowstone.
And that's really a shift from where it was, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago, isn't it?
100%. And I think it's just, a lot of it has to do with COVID. Things have really boomed here since COVID. Um, During COVID, people weren't traveling internationally. So this town got really busy during COVID, and we saw a huge spike in real estate prices here, pretty much doubled pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Yeah. Well, I made a 68% profit on my condo, sale of my condo.
Yeah, exactly. And you're probably even a little, you weren't even at the peak of the market, probably even.
It was
So
July, August of 2020.
yeah, things peaked out in 2022 here. So you were kind of early in that whole real estate, but you still did really well.
Well, the nice thing was I was able to pay off all my debt
Yes,
and still have
and
money.
move on.
So, uh,
Yeah.
I miss Jackson a lot.
Hmm.
I really love living there, and I love the locals that I got to know. Um,
Yeah.
but the tourist environment was a little bit difficult to absorb because those people are not. I mean, I'm a guy that's going to talk to everyone that passes by me, and they
Yeah.
didn't really they weren't really willing to talk too much. So
Yeah.
it's not a place where you build relationships. I mean, oh, you're in a coffee shop, and someone in you have a conversation. Oh, you're from Chicago. Oh, you're from Miami. Yeah. Well, I come over there every now and then. Well, give us a call. But that never happens.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I
So
usually try to stay away from the downtown in the summertime. It's so busy down there as far as the traffic and just
I
driving
lived
through there.
downtown, and I didn't.
Yeah.
I had my set places that I would go.
Yes.
The restaurants that I would eat at, and the market. Down there, and I would go because I was going to see the people I liked, my friends,
Yeah.
and I could tell that the world was changing because when I left, that whole world just remained there, and it didn't. None of that followed me here. So,
Hmm.
um, which
Do you
I'm
miss it?
not a complaint. It's just the way it is.
Do you miss it?
I miss the geography. I miss the mountains. I
Yeah.
miss I miss the cold weather.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I really like cold weather. Um, it was 29 this morning. I went out and walked in it was nice. It was kind of, oh, this is good. I like this. I like the long distances that you had to drive to go places. I like
Hmm.
that time in the car, that driving time. I liked it, but I didn't like what was happening. As the people who are buying to kind of tax shelter their money. I didn't like what I
Hmm.
was seeing, and I knew it was going to become a difficult place to create a life if you um, to create a life if you didn't want to do three jobs, during the
Hmm.
year.
Yeah. I don't understand how people afford to live here. It's very, very expensive. And I make good money and it's still hard.
Yeah. Well, that inflation has happened everywhere. So
Hmm.
I go out to dinner here. I live in Winston-Salem, and I go out to dinner here, and it costs me um, almost what it cost me in Jackson 5 years ago.
Wow.
So,
Hmm.
and I like the restaurants I go to, but you know it's um it's not the same, not the same quality.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not a foodie culture here. You have a foodie culture there, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so
We went to a new restaurant here in town last night. There were seven of us, and we had two bottles of wine, a couple of drinks, and the bill was $1,200. We're
yeah.
like, it's expensive. A lot of money.
Well, a person like me, I could go to a place and have a steak and have a drink, couple of drinks, and it's $100.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I think that's where the world is. The economics of living are changing, and I wonder.
Hmm.
So maybe, I mean, you have two young girls, and you know, do you see them staying in Jackson once they finish high school and maybe go to
No.
college?
No, I think my oldest daughter is a senior right now. She's applied to seven colleges in California.
Yeah.
She wants to go somewhere warm and sunny.
Uh-huh.
Um, youngest daughter, she's a freshman, so she's still early on that track, but I do not see probably either of my girls coming back here to live. I don't know how they're going to afford it. And we don't own any of the other real estate that would allow them to come back. And, we don't own any an extra condo or a townhome or a vacant lot that they could build on. But as of right now, I don't see that happening. And I don't know if they want to come back here. I think they jokingly say they don't want to come back to Jackson Hole, but my wife was born and raised here. My brother-in-law was born and raised here, and they both came back after college. So, um,
Well, it's
but yeah,
it's an infectious place.
yeah, yeah. I think kids don't really understand how good they have it here until they leave, and then they come back and they're like, oh, yeah, Jackson Hole is pretty special spot.
Yeah, and I know so many, I'm an older guy, so I moved there, at retirement age, and that was a mistake. I mean, it wasn't a mistake to move there, but I should have moved there 20 years before, or
Hmm.
30
Why is
because
that?
there's a lot of things that you need to be young in order to take advantage of.
Hmm.
And I forget who he was, but he does a lot of different things, and I knew him through the church, and he did a he did this marathon hike from the pass all the way to Targhee, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and he filmed it. And I saw the film. I thought, that's a young man's avocation.
Yeah, it's one
And
of the reasons I try to stay healthy here, so I can try to
yeah,
keep
well,
up with people.
you really have to. But but I realized that there were a lot of young people. They finish college and they come out there. They're going to come out for the winter. They're going to come out and
Hmm.
ski, work.
Yeah,
And they never leave.
this guy.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so do you see that still manifesting itself over the next generation?
I do. I think people are always going to be intrigued about coming to Jackson Hole.
Yeah.
I think there's this fantasy of coming here, and I remember the first time I watched a ski film called License to Thrill, and it was like one of the first like extreme ski videos with Scott Schmidt and Glenn Plake, and I must have watched that video. It was a VHS hundreds and hundreds of times, and I always had this fantasy of I'm going to come out to Jackson Hole and jump off all these cliffs and do all this powder skiing. And then I got out here and I realized how good those guys were and how big the mountains really are. But I think there is that fantasy of coming to Jackson Hole, and the question is how can you survive here? How do you make it? And how can you continue to live here? And I think that's the biggest question. I think people can last here a year or two, and then after that, they're like, okay, now I gotta either go get a real job or try to continue that lifestyle for a while, but it's not easy, like I said. And as far as buying real estate, it's almost impossible for young people to buy real estate here unless they have some type of help from their family.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
it's kind of like
you
you
can't
come
do
out
it.
there and you're a guy and you're having a great time and you're fishing in the summer and you're
Yeah,
biking, you're skiing in the winter and you meet this gal and and you're from different parts of the country and you say, well, why don't we just get married and spend the rest of our life here? It sounds so magical. I mean, it is magic. It is magic.
yes,
And and then
yeah,
they realize, gosh, just how do we afford to have children? And
yeah.
and
Hmm.
I just don't understand how it all ends up working out.
Yeah, I remember the first, this is a funny story, but the first time when I just moved to Jackson Hole, I was at a local gym and I met somebody and he's like, "You should meet my daughter." And I'm like, "Where do you live?" And he told me where he lived, and he lives slopeside up at Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. And I remember kind of like driving up to his house, and I was fresh. I was literally like here for 2 weeks, and I was thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, I made it." Just like I kind of felt like Dumb and Dumber, like pulling up to the big mansion
A
on
room in
the
your
on the
basement
ski
that I can
hill.
leave in.
Yeah. And of course, that didn't go anywhere, but it was like that fallacy or not, just that fantasy or whatever that you have in your
It's
mind that like,
a
oh yeah,
fabulous.
I'm going to move out west and I'm going to find this person who, if you can't afford to live here, that's going to take care of me for the rest of my life.
So, how does the politics enter into this now? Because you have wealthy people, extraordinarily wealthy people who
Yep.
who are used to having control over the political process because they put
Hmm.
money in, and they got their they target their candidates and we're going to support you and you're going to be our but
Hmm.
to be our guy with the council, whatever. How do you see that functioning there? And if you
You,
want to say anything, I mean, it's
that's a good question. I don't pay attention to politics that much. I've
Mhm.
I'm pretty much media free. I haven't watched the news, read the newspaper. I'm pretty in almost 10 years, and it's just part of kind of what I do. But I don't know how much of an influence those out of state people have. I don't think they really have much of an influence as far as the local government goes. We're the only blue county in the entire state of Wyoming. We're surrounded, everyone else is Republican, like strong Republicans,
right.
Democratic Teton counties. So um, as far as like the presidential elections, if you're a Democrat in Teton County, you kind of feel like your vote doesn't really matter. And I hate to say that, but we're surrounded by the rest of the state it's been a Republican state forever
Yeah.
regarding presidential. But you know, um, it's an interesting. I don't pay too much attention to that, but the local politics, the I don't know how much force the outside money really has on that. I don't think it really does. The big issues are housing here and wildlife, traffic, kind of, I think the same for any small mountain town. The
Well,
big thing is the housing, affordable housing. We're trying to create a lot of affordable housing here in the valley.
but there's just not a lot of space for that.
There's no space. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're building some really large buildings right now. There's a new condominium complex going or an apartment building going in that's 180 units, 4-story high, and that'll be the first and largest building like that ever built in town. I drive by it every morning, and you're shocked at how big this building's going to be, and they're all going to be just rentals. Company, I believe they're out of Salt Lake City, who's building that.
They probably have been building things at Park City and other places like that.
Yeah, and
that's their niche.
yeah, yeah. So as far as the politics, I like I said, I don't really pay too much attention to it. I just kind of do my thing.
Well, that should help. I mean, if you got 180 apartments and you got say two people living in every apartment, that
Yeah.
should help a lot. But
Yeah, and there's a new development going in here in town that's going to be 1,200 homes or 1,200 units. That's just got approved by the town and the county. That's going to make a big impact here in the valley. It'll be very interesting. They're saying that's going to be about a 10-year project till they kind of build that whole subdivision out. So be
where is
curious
that?
to see how that helps. It's
What is
south
that?
of town over by the high school. Yeah,
Oh,
it's in the Gill property.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, right across from Cottonwood Park.
yeah. I know where that is. Uh,
Yeah.
so, so how is the I knew a lot of people that picked up and moved over to Idaho, over to
Yeah.
Driggs, Victor, and
hmm
how is that changing life over there?
Uh, things are getting more expensive over there.
Yeah.
People are getting pushed out of here and going over there. Um, I think the good thing over there, that side of the valley and kind of Star Valley has been pretty sleepy for the last 20 years since I've lived here. Um, I think they're finally both of those areas are starting to get some momentum as far as people being able to work and live over there, as far as like construction workers and their economy starting to get a lot better over there. But like I said, they're still making that commute over here just because of the hourly wages are still so much better over here, especially for like construction workers when they can get come over here and get paid $50 an hour where they're getting paid 25 over there. It
Oh,
makes it worth their while.
oh.
Um, we're seeing, yeah, I think that the whole, I think especially Victor Driggs, I think that valley could get really big 100 years from now, just because that land is so expansive over there. I think it's been a slow process. I personally think it's been a lot slower than I thought it was going to be. You know, I bought property over there in 2000, thinking that everything was gonna get built out over there, and you still go over there, and it's still pretty sleepy. So, but busy in a different way, just like anywhere.
So for people who would, I mean, well, let me frame it this way. One of the things that I have found in my interactions with people over the last 30 years is that a lot of people hit their 40s and they're deciding,
hmm
I'm going to change my life. I've done this.
hmm
I've done my 20, 25 years in the corporate world, and now I want to go do something different. And all of a sudden, moving to a place like Jackson, or Vail or, Aspen or someplace, one of these mountain resort communities becomes very attractive.
hmm
So if and if so what does a person need to be thinking about if that's something that they would be considering? I mean, because I would imagine some of those people are contacting you about um, looking for real estate or looking for a house.
Um,
So how should people approach um, that kind of change of life transition where they end up in a beautiful place like Jackson?
that's a good question. Um, I think the first thing would be to figure out what kind of lifestyle they're looking for. You
Mhm.
know, are they coming out here to they coming out here to ski? What intrigues them or why they want to come to a mountain town. I think the second thing would be where they're going to live, and how they're going to afford to live here. And then, um, yeah, and I think the third thing would be like how can you give back, or how do you get involved with the community and how you give back to and make something uh make it your own. Um,
Yeah. Uh,
I don't know if I really answered your question. I guess the first thing would be is to make sure that you can afford to live here.
yeah, that's
Mountain
right.
towns are expensive. Yeah,
Yeah.
no matter where you go, if you go to here to Vail to Telluride to even Bend, Oregon, that's not really a ski town, but it's a mountain town, and um it's the dream. People love are they've done the corporate thing. They've lived in a city. They maybe have started a family, and they're like, okay, let's go try a different avenue. And it's exciting. I think if I tip my hat to anybody who can make that move as far as picking up and going somewhere completely different and trying to make something work. And I think it's more about a lifestyle that's good for your soul. The living in a mountain town and living in Jackson Hole is just it's good for your body, as you know, because you have to stay healthy if you're going to live in this valley. If you want to ski, if you want to hike, if you want to hunt,
That's right.
fish, ride mountain bikes, cross country ski, skate ski, rock climb, like it's a it's a lifestyle for athletic, active people, and it's so good for you because it keeps you healthy.
Yeah, the thing I tell people when I'm encountering that question about life change, and sometimes they're saying I don't want to work for anyone, I want to start my own business, all those sort of things. My first thing I say to them is you got to watch your money. You got to be really careful
Yes.
where your money goes. And
Hmm.
for some people, because they've always had a paycheck coming in, they don't
Yeah.
know what that means. They really don't. And
Yeah.
so learning how to manage your money becomes really a critical facet for a long-term success at changing your life in a significant way. And
Yeah.
Jackson's the place to do it if you got the money to do it. And
Yes.
is is that what has happened in Jackson? Is that spreading to other places within an hour, 2 hours of Jackson? I'm thinking about places like Du Bois and Cody and
Hmm.
well, obviously you got Victor and Driggs, but you say those towns that are just out the west entrance of Yellowstone, West Yellowstone, and those
Yeah.
is this having an effect upon those communities in terms of their growth?
I think a little bit, I don't think it's as immediate as it is right in Jackson. Like if you drive to Du Bois, which is an hour and 20 minutes from here,
Right.
it's a cowboy town. It's,
Still is.
there's not a stoplight. You got a little cafe there to have some breakfast. There's a gym there now, which is pretty big for that town. And you're in and out of that town within 5 minutes. Um, it's sleepy over there. And it's an amazing place to live. The weather's a little bit different over there. It's a slower pace in life. Um, but I don't think real estate prices have gone up a little bit over there, but not like it's far enough where it hasn't affected it that much. I think it's probably just kept up with, like you said earlier, just inflation rates and just everything getting more expensive, but it's still you can go over there and buy a house for, 400 grand in Du Bois,
But you're not close to
where you
any
can't touch
city.
that around here.
You're not close to any city if you're in Du Bois. You're not like Cody. You can be in Billings
Correct.
fairly quickly, and you can be in from Jackson. You can be in
Yep.
Twin Falls pretty quickly. I mean, it's or Idaho Falls pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But Du Bois, you got a long way to go to get anywhere, and that's part of the
Well,
charm.
it's like Pinedale.
Yeah, it's like Pine.
Yeah. I was in Pinedale this past weekend for a volleyball tournament, and I was riding down with some people who live in Jackson. And I said, "Could you live in Pinedale?" And the woman who I was riding with, the first thing that she said was, "It's too far from an airport."
Yeah,
And I never really thought about that as far as like if you like to travel, Pinedale's an hour and 25 minutes, hour and 30 minutes from here.
yeah,
And typically the flights coming out of Jackson are at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you got to get there by 6 o'clock at the latest, 5:30, 5:30. And that means you're leaving your house in Pinedale at 4, which means you're waking up at 3. So if you like to travel, it's not very convenient to
right.
get to an airport any kind of anywhere in Wyoming, unless you're down by Cheyenne and you're driving to Denver.
That's
Yeah,
right.
the closest airport other than Jackson here in is Salt Lake, and that's a 5-hour drive.
And I used to fly out
And
of
that kind of made
there.
me think of like, yeah, yeah, it made me think of your comment that you like the long drives here in the valley, and I've never really heard anybody say that, but it is true. Like people ask me, all the time, back in Pennsylvania where you can get to anything within 20, 30 minutes. Or, I tell people that I have to go to a volleyball game with my daughter for, one match, and you got to drive to Casper, and it's over 3 hours to a volleyball match. And then you're driving there and then you're driving home that same night. It's a
Yeah,
long day for
very long day.
people. Anybody who plays sports in Wyoming appreciates the long bus rides and the parents. It's a commitment for parents to have a student athlete in this town or in this state. It's hard
I spent
in Wyoming because we're in the western, or in Jackson because we're on the western side. So everything's east. You're
that's
not
right.
driving to Idaho.
I spent 3 months
Yeah.
out there last year at this time, September through November,
Hmm.
working with some churches, and I lived in Casper for a month, and then I lived in Cody for 2 months. And
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, it was really interesting. So in Casper, I would go out, and I went up to Sheridan and to Gillette,
Hmm.
and then I would I would go down to Fort Collins, and it's quick. I mean, relatively quick. Um,
Yeah.
Cody was a lot farther. I never went to Billings, but I went to
Hmm.
Yellowstone quite a bit, spending
Yeah.
time, and never got to Jackson, because I was kind of.
Wow.
But it was interesting, and I'll share this with you because I see you put Cody and you put Jackson together, parallel, and how different they are, and then how similar they are. And the similarities
Yeah.
are it's the West, it's cowboys, it's
Hmm.
horses, it's outdoors and stuff like that. The dissimilarities are there is there you don't have an economic engine like the resort in Jackson that
Yeah.
generates all this
Hmm.
income for the community. You don't have that in Cody, and
Yeah.
winter shows up there and it's quiet, and
Yeah.
they have to make their money in the summer,
Yeah. It's kind of like Island Park.
kind of like Island Park.
Kind of in the western side of Yellowstone, that place gets hammered in the summertime, and then you go up there in the wintertime, and at least they have snowmobiling up there, but that's a pretty sleepy town in the wintertime. When you drive through there, there's not much going on in Island Park, but when you drive through there June through August, you can barely get through that town. So, like you said, they got to make money while they can.
I'm really grateful for the almost 6 years that I spent there, and I wish I'd
Yeah.
spent. If COVID hadn't come along, I'd still be there. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know what I would be doing, but I would still be there, and enjoying it, and figuring out how to make a living and how to survive.
Yeah.
As a retired person, I'm semi-retired now, but my hope is that the the chaos of change, which has descended upon the valley, which
Hmm.
is the way I would describe it, finds a way to work itself out so the place can be stable for people who are kind of the backbone of any old community, which are the old families, the old
Yeah.
generations that have been there forever. And I know some of those people, and I was talking to one guy a year ago, and he was on the one of the committees that I was working with through the church, and he had been there forever. And he said that in 2 years, his property taxes had gone up 100%.
Hmm.
And he didn't know
It's
what he was
crazy.
going to do. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he's 20 years into retirement. So it's not like he's still got income coming in other than whatever his portfolio. And I doubt his portfolio is like most of the ones that are there now where they had to generate
Yeah.
lots of wealth in order to survive there. So, to think about him leaving, which is what he was saying, I might have to leave here because I won't be able to
Yeah.
afford. afford it.
I hear that a lot from older people.
So
People people want to move to St. George, somewhere somewhere warmer, or something Utah, somewhere close, but still kind of mountainous. But yeah, the taxes are are hard on people who have a stable retirement income. Difficult.
so do you see yourself spend the rest of your life there?
Um, it's a good question. I don't know that. I've been in the snow my entire life. Born and raised at a ski resort in Pennsylvania. Been skiing since I was 3. I don't know the answer to that. I'm kind of getting a look. I turned 50 this year,
Congratulations.
and yeah, thank you. And I think I'd like to go somewhere warm sometimes. Like right now, my hands are cold. I'm sitting in my office. I got a little hand warmer right here just because, it's
I
15
know.
degrees out, and after a while, your body just it gets cold, and your circulation changes, things like that. But I don't know, the idea of owning maybe a second home somewhere
Yeah.
and doing kind of the reverse, or at least getting away during the off season, somewhere warm like St. George or even like Costa Rica sounds really nice, having a place down there. It'd be kind of nice just to have somewhere to get away and kind of just, the locals like to leave here for spring break and thaw out a little bit, come April. It's a long winter here. It's 6 months.
Yeah.
It's a full half of the year it snows here. And it starts wearing me a little bit. And when I got here, I couldn't wait for the snow, and I still enjoy the snow because I snowmobile, but um, I could see that changing a little bit the older I get. Maybe once I get my 60s or a little like something like that, go somewhere into a golf community, play golf, and still try to stay active, but just differently.
See, I think I think what's going to happen. I mean, I mean, I look at this. I'm 71, and
Hmm.
and I've moved 4 times in the last 10 years. So I,
Wow.
I hope this is. Uh, I'd say I hope I'll never move again, but I know I probably will. Um, but what I see is that um, there's a large transfer of wealth that's going to take place over the next generation, and
Yep.
and that people who are post retirement, they're gonna work later in their life, and
Hmm.
they're not going to retire until they're in their 80s, and so the accommodation to that by communities, by businesses, by real estate, um, by health care institutions, all of that's going to have to happen because there's some of us. I mean, I don't plan to ever quit working. I like working. If I didn't work, I would, I wouldn't last in a year.
Hmm.
And I think there are a
Yeah.
lot of people, I think more and more people are going to be like that because, and this is kind of the way what I see is that fewer and fewer people will have the traditional corporate jobs like most of the people in my generation have had. And they're going to be in smaller businesses. They're going to be more dynamic businesses. They're going to be more entrepreneurial businesses. And so they're going to have a sense of having the opportunities to do new things all the time. And even
Hmm.
after they reach the traditional retirement age, they're going to still be trying to do new things.
Yeah.
And um, so I think, for me, I think that means that there'll be a lot of places that will attract money that are not attracting it now because they will figure out there's something there for this age and older that generates. And I think maybe one of the examples of that is that big development in Florida called the Villages.
Oh yeah. My parents go there every year. I've been there.
I have too. I
Have you
have
been there? Yeah.
it's not where I want to live, but
Yeah.
it is a perfect place for a lot of people who are retired.
100%. Where I grew up in Seven Springs, There are, if I had to guess, 8 to 10 people from the mountain that I grew up on who live permanently at the villages now. Just they love it down there. They love the golf. They love the community. They love that there's 1,200 clubs, that are there. They got 50 golf courses. It's pretty, yeah. If you're a social person, it's a good place to go.
Well, I think that's going to be a trend that will and so whatever we have thought as older age and older,
Yeah.
I think none of that's going to hold up well. I think it's going to change, and um,
Hmm.
it's my generation. I'm a baby boomer. I don't think my generation will experience it that much, but yours will.
Hmm.
And but I don't really associate with my generation that much, and I
No, how come?
um, because um, they're not very um, they're very settled into very predictable lifestyles. I'm trying to be nice.
Hmm.
They're
Yeah.
boring. To me, they're boring. And
Yeah.
I like people who are younger and they're constantly challenging things. And I mean, here I am, 71. I've moved four times in 10 years. And and this move was from a small little town. It would be like living in it would have been like living in Victor or Drix. And now I've moved to a city of
Okay. Yeah.
250,000, and I'm living downtown in a
Wow, that's big.
100-year-old
Yeah.
house, big 2,500 square foot house. It doesn't make any sense at all, but I'm going to make it work. And
Yeah.
I like where I live. I can be downtown in 3 minutes. I have
Hmm.
five grocery stores within 5 to 10 minutes of my house.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all those amenities are there. But there are other things that are not here. They're not,
Yeah.
it takes a while to get to the mountains.
Hmm.
But my point is, I think the thing which, um, what we have to deal with as adults, as we age, is what is our purpose and what are we going to do to fulfill that purpose? Because
Hmm.
we've in my generation, our purpose has been aligned with the job that we have. And
Yeah.
now that's changing. And so our purpose
Yeah.
is personal. And so we go and try to find things to do that fit with the purpose that I have and or that people have decided that they want. And that's one of the
Hmm.
things I see taking place for people who are in their 40s is that they're making a significant change in I'm no longer going to be defined by the job that I have. I'm going to be defined by the
Yeah.
purpose that I have. And
Yeah.
which is exciting to me because all those people
Yeah.
are now ready to go make a difference in the world,
Yeah.
which is,
And get a lifestyle change.
and with that comes a lifestyle change that
Yeah.
maybe the first inclination about what that lifestyle looks like is not the one that they actually end up with.
Hmm. And I think like just with Instagram and YouTube and everything like that, it's a lot easier for people to kind of envision these, you get on those sites and you see the best of somebody's life. They're posting all these like amazing things about what they got going on. And then you start to envision yourself doing that, which I think has spurred a change in people to want to do something differently. Just you only live once and the whole YOLO thing is like, okay, well, you only live once, let's go for it. And especially with just people dying. My brother-in-law had one of his high school best friends died 2 days ago, 50 years old, had a stroke, and it's like you can't predict that. You got to go for it. Send it.
Well, yeah, when I first moved there, I had to find a lawyer to transfer my North Carolina trust into Wyoming trust, and I had and I don't remember his name, but had an appointment scheduled with this guy on a Wednesday, and on that Monday he was hiking up on Mount Moran, and there was a landslide, and he was taken out, and he died.
Yeah,
And
happens.
I'm thinking, wow, I mean that's real life.
Yeah,
And he went out doing that which he loved.
yep. I hear that a lot with people here. I've lost, I had to guess, 4 or 5 friends die in the mountains since I've been here. Just doing what they love, exploring, getting up there, going up there, knowing that they're taking a risk going up there and being okay with that. And most of them have died in the winter, as far as skiing goes, taken out by avalanches or whatever. But every time I go in the mountains on a snowmobile, you never know. You hope that you're safe and you make good decisions and you come back. But it's a chance that you take every time you leave the house.
Does your family go with you?
No, hmm, no,
That's not their
it's
thing.
kind of yeah, it's not their thing. It's kind of, I don't know, big boy snowmobiling. Yeah, it's just you're yeah, it's not. I do go out with the family, like we'll go to Granite Hot Springs or something like that. But um, yeah, just part of living in the West. Things get,
But do you have a
especially
favorite
with
place?
nowadays a toy. Yeah, I like going down in Bondurant. That's kind of my favorite zone as far as the snowmobile goes. But all this new equipment nowadays just makes it so easy to access places that are extremely dangerous. Got these big sleds with turbos and long tracks, and just it's crazy. You can get yourself into some really scary spots pretty quickly if you're not smart. But yeah, but I also think the Instagram helps with that whole process as far as people wanting to post stuff that gets a bunch of likes, or people trying to get sponsored by certain things and doing extreme stuff that gets them in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're very fortunate to not only live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, but also
Yeah.
be able to make a living and to raise a family there. And I'm grateful to know you, and thank you for who you present yourself as to all of us who benefited from your work.
I appreciate that, Ed. And I miss you in the valley. And it's I love selling real estate, but there are certain people when they call me up and they tell me that they want to sell because they're leaving, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're like, all right, yeah.
yeah. It was. I think about that often, and and I went to a place and I really liked it, but it wasn't a place that I could grow in, and
Hmm.
I'm still working on that here. And to grow, for me, to grow is having um, I actually what I really need is my own plane.
There you go. Don't we all?
So I can go anywhere I want on a moment's
Yeah,
notice.
that'd be
Because
nice.
I mean, this morning I posted my 188th episode of the podcast,
Wow.
and that means there's about 170 people who have been on the podcast. I've had some repeats, and I've had some episodes where I just spoke, and I'm getting ready to start the third year, and you know, and it's been the greatest thing I've ever done.
Why is that?
Because I'm meeting people. I'm meeting people here on Zoom like I would meet people in Jackson. There would be people
Yeah.
that were just we were just, I mean, most of the people that I'm interviewing have been introduced to me by someone else, oftentimes again.
Hmm.
And some of the times when we log on, I don't know who they are. I know their name. I don't know who they
Yeah.
are, where they live, what they do. And so the conversation is actually starting a relationship. And and it's never dull and it's never boring. And they're very interesting people out there. I was sitting in a bar downtown watching the NCAA basketball tournament last March. And this guy comes in and sits down and talks to me. And he and his wife have a place here and they have a place at the beach and they live in Atlanta and he's a corporate finance guy. So, they're kind of a Jackson Hole kind of couple. And so we're talking about, the podcast. I said, I'd like to have you on my podcast. I still like to have him. He hasn't signed up yet. He says, well, what kind of people do you have? And I turned on my stool and I would just wave my arm across the entire bar and I says, everyone in here would be worthwhile talking to on my podcast.
Yeah. Hmm.
Everybody has something to say, has something to contribute. And I'm not really interested in people who have something to promote or their ego
Yeah.
is important in projecting their ego, into the public eye.
Yeah.
It's really just I get to talk to people who are very interesting and the
Yeah.
response from people who are watching is similar. And so, oh, that was really
Yeah.
interesting. So,
Yeah. I have a friend who I went to college with. His name was JD Hughes. Super nice guy, funny, one of the funniest people I ever met in my life. But I remember him saying to me in college, we were talking about I lived in a fraternity. We had a chef there, and her name was Barb. And he said, just remember, you can learn something from anybody, anywhere. She knows more about something that you'll ever know. So just look at every person that you ever meet, that they know something that you don't, and you can learn something from somebody, no matter who they are. So I kind of look at that perspective in my life. Just, yeah, keep
well,
learning. I think you've got a great knack of what you do, Ed. You're very good at this, and you're good at asking questions and leading into the next question. So
well, I'm just very,
this is
I'm
great.
very curious. I'm very curious, and I
Yeah.
want and and I want people to feel like they've been heard and that they've been appreciated because a lot of people don't have that experience in their life, and
Yeah.
so to do that in public is even a better thing. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's all these different things in my life have kind of come together in this one place, and I could really do this anywhere,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
who knows, I may end up back there. I
You
have to
never
find
know,
a
right?
family
I know
first.
a good realtor.
I do too. I know, I know you'd be the first person that would talk if that would
Yeah.
ever happen. I won't say it won't happen. I won't say that because
Yeah.
I don't have no idea what I have an idea what happens tomorrow,
Yeah.
but a year from now, I don't know. I don't know how long I'm going to
Yeah.
stay in this. I just don't know anything. And that freedom, I mean, let me put it that way. I think that freedom is what people who come to Jackson experience. They have this freedom to kind of take their life wherever it's going to take them. And if they
Yep.
love the mountains, if they love snow, they love water, they love all that stuff, that's the right place for them.
Yeah. No doubt.
Well, I'm grateful to get to talk with you and wish we could sit over a scotch at I don't know, someplace and bin 22 or someplace and have dinner.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll do that sooner than we can imagine. But I appreciate you, and I'm hopeful that your life will continue on a very positive and beautiful trajectory.
I appreciate that, Ed. It was great to talk to you today.
And thank you everybody for watching. And I hope that you learned something and you got inspired. Maybe you go check out Jackson Hole, Wyoming. You will not be
Look me
disappointed.
up.
Do it.
Yeah. Come look me up. Seriously, look me up if you ever come here. I'm happy to help out.
And we'll see you next time here on the Eddie Network podcast. Thank you very much.